Reconsidering the story of Sachem Uncas of the Mohegan. Chief Uncas was born around 1598 as the son of the Sachem Owanego. Uncas, whose name comes from a Mohegan Pequot word meaning fox, is known for his leadership of the Mohegan people and his rebellion against Pequot rule that resulted in an independent, sovereign Mohegan tribe. Originally, the Mohegan and the Pequot existed as a single group under the name of the Pequot Tribal Nation, which historically owned and inhabited lands in the modern-day state of Connecticut. The Pequot spoke an Eastern Algonquian language, or more specifically, a dialect of what is known today as the Mohegan Pequot language. In the early 1600s, Tatobem was the head chief of the Pequot Tribal Nation. He was also referred to as the Grand Sachem, which is another word for chief or leader of an indigenous community. Then in 1626, Uncas married Tatobem's daughter in order to ally his village with Pequot authorities. It's important to note that Uncas belonged to an extremely powerful and influential family, which was essentially part of the Pequot nobility. This explains why he would play a key role in political relations between his people, led by his father Owanego, and Tatobem's people. Unfortunately, Owanego died soon after the marriage, forcing Uncas to submit to Tatobem's power. In 1633, when Tatobem was captured and killed by Dutch settlers in a trading conflict, Uncas believed that, as his son-in-law and a descendant of several other Pequot and Narragansett sachems, including his father Owanego, he should have been Tatobem's successor. However, Tatobem's own son, Sassacus, ultimately took over as Grand Sachem of the Pequot Tribal Nation. This angered Uncas, who felt that he deserved the position as head sachem. Uncas then led a series of rebellions against Sassacus, and when Uncas was ultimately exiled to Narragansett territory as a result of these revolts, he and his followers began to split off from the Pequot tribe to form the Mohegan, or Wolf people. After the murder of Tatobem, the Pequot nation first attacked a Dutch trading post in revenge. Then the Pequot again retaliated against their leader's murder by killing a crew of white settlers who had positioned their boat on the Pequot River. In fact, this was not a Dutch crew, but an English one under the command of a Virginian settler named John Stone. Although it is unclear whether the Pequot did not understand that the Dutch and English were separate powers, or whether they simply did not care to understand the difference, the killing of these English settlers undoubtedly provoked tension in the relationship between the English Puritans and the Pequot nation. At first, Sassacus tried to appeal to the government of Virginia, requesting an alliance with the English and promising to make amends by turning in the Pequot who had killed Stone and his men, as well as by gifting the English with animal skins and wampums in compensation. However, the attempts at Puritan Pequot cooperation did not last long, and after English settler John Oldham was found dead on the Narragansett territory of Block Island, the English officially set out to punish those who had killed their men. Because the Narragansetts were able to convince the English that Block Island was under Pequot control, and that the Pequot were thus responsible for Oldham's death, the Narragansett were mostly spared from English vengeance. In fact, the Narragansetts joined the English colonists in their war against the Pequot. Uncas also decided to join the English against the Pequot. Thus, the Mohegan under Uncas were fighting against their former tribal nation, the Pequot, who were now a separate people with different interests and objectives. Historians still debate why Uncas made the decision to turn fully against the Pequot and fight on the side of their enemy, especially considering the fact that Uncas was related to the royal family line of the Pequot nation. However, several scholars have pointed out that, although the Mohegan and Pequot may have originally been one people ethnically, they should be regarded as two separate political entities from the time of the Mohegan split from the Pequot nation. They have also explained that Uncas's interests and those of his followers aligned with those of the English, so he saw an alliance with the settlers as the best choice for the Mohegan people. After all, Uncas understood that the strength and survival of his people depended on his relationship with the extremely powerful English colonists, and he took advantage of his relationship with the white settlers to subdue his indigenous enemies in the process. The alliance between the English and the Mohegan also kept the latter from experiencing overwhelming losses in King Philip's War, although Uncas was occasionally forced into unfavorable deals with the English. For example, in his pledge to supply warriors and resources to the English in their fight with the Pequot, Uncas had to hand over 2 of his younger sons to the settlers as hostages to ensure that the Mohegan people would remain loyal to the white settlers for the entirety of the war. Unfortunately, Uncas and the Mohegan people are sometimes interpreted by historians as traitors to their people and to their indigenous culture. However, to see the Mohegan as no different from the Pequot would be a serious error, as the two tribal nations unmistakably diverged politically and socially, and from that point of separation, Uncas did what any other leader would do, what was best for his own people. Thus, the story of Uncas is a perfect example of how a misinterpretation of Native American history, for example, grouping all indigenous nations together, or assuming that the concepts and logical reasoning of diplomacy, politics, and national security did not apply to societies that were not European in origin, can result in gross misunderstandings and harmful stereotypes that distort the reality of our country's history.